And we are back. Mark Petroni with you on Saga 960, back from a couple of weeks off on vacation. I missed you, my friends. I really did. And thank you for those emails. For those who insisted that life just wasn't the same without having Petroni on either the radio or on podcast. And it made me feel wanted. And Lord knows we all need that from time to time. Kind of nice to see the Argentinian government teetering on the brink of collapse. This is another World Economic Forum puppet state now, feeling the wrath of the people as it imposes all these draconian green energy programs that are making people's lives miserable. And so this is what happens. And is Justin Trudeau going to get the message, or does he too have to be pushed out in order to bring in the kind of measures that are pro people, pro humanity, rather than pro World Economic Forum? But there's also another story. I want to talk to Benjamin Dichter, BJ Dichter, our friend, a regular on Saga 960. And Benjamin, of course, has been key to the convoy. He's got a book coming out. He's got a terrific article on Substack. And he's talking a little bit about the fact that he's going to be testifying before House of Commons committee on what happened with the Freedom Convoy, on the imposition of the Emergencies Act, aka martial law. And that's why it's such a pleasure bringing Benjamin on the show. Benjamin Dichter, welcome, sir.
Welcome back. How are you?
I'm feeling good.
Good.
I'm feeling good. Glad to be back. Okay, so you're incredibly busy right now. You've got a book on the way. You still find time to do the Substacks interview. I read this column. It's available on your Substack, so if people want to subscribe, easy way to do that, right, Benjamin?
Yeah, just go to bjdichter.substack.com and that'll let you in. Just subscribe for free, and you'll see the latest article is already up.
Yeah, a lot of this is going back and revisiting what happened in the past, and then you go way down and you find out that you are about to testify. You speak about your friend Tamara Leach.
Yes.
And, okay, go ahead. You want to talk about that?
No, yes, we've no, just to further on that point, we received a notice last week. At least our legal team contacted me and said, "Yeah, we have been. You've been asked to testify in this committee." And I said, "Great! I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be a party."
Okay, so. I mean, I've actually testified in some of these committees. When I was appointed to the CRTC, the Liberals don't like the fact that anybody else makes appointments. They think they're the only ones who should be able to appoint anybody to anything. And so I had to justify my existence. I know what it's like. I mean, it can be a little nerve-wracking if you've never done it before, being peppered questions from people. I mean, I'm used to asking the questions. Getting asked those questions is a little different, but in your case, you've been getting questions thrown at you, for a long time because of your role in the convoy. What can you give us a heads up? Like, what are you going to tell these people?
Well, I think the first thing that's interesting to note is that people on, let's say, the radical left, let's not take people who are actually, somewhat centrist liberal, but the radical left doesn't ask questions, they make assertions, and they don't understand the difference between the two. And I look forward to them doing that during the hearing. But I think what's interesting is, something I'm going to be speaking about as I start streaming leading up to the hearings is we need to remember something very important. In Canada and in Western nations, we have the presumption of innocence, right? But that's for the citizens. That's not for the government. It's like accounting, debits and credits, right? It's like a stock trade. There's a buyer and a seller. If one side has the presumption of innocence, then guess what? The other side has the presumption of guilt. That's why we have hearings. That's why soldiers have rules and engagements, and police have very strict guidelines when it comes to arresting people. It's because the presumption of guilt is on the government side. So we're not the ones who are up against the wall. It's the government, because they need to prove that they didn't act violently without justification, which is going to be a very, very difficult thing for them to prove, in my opinion.
Yeah, but they also have a liberal friendly judge overseeing this whole thing. And so, whether or not anybody's going to have to pay a real price, I mean, you spoke about an election, the possibility of an election. You predicted this. Good for you. A lot of people didn't think it was going to happen, but here we are moving in the direction of what appears to be a fall election. The Conservatives are widely expected to choose Pierre Poilievre, although it's not guaranteed, but it certainly looks that way, that Poilievre is going to be the next leader of the Conservative Party of Canada after September. And you think that sometime in the fall, Trudeau is going to put Poilievre to the test and take Canada to the polls. Why do you think he's looking to do that?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. Firstly, as I mentioned, I touched on this in the Substack a little bit. There has been no person in the political frame that has been so detrimental to the reputation of Justin Trudeau in the House of Commons. And they will not allow Trudeau to be a punching bag for 2 years. It's just not going to happen. So they need to call an election before he starts throwing right hooks at Trudeau in Parliament. That's the first thing. But there's many other reasons, behind the scenes that kind of add to it. But the relationship, or the coalition that's not a coalition, with the NDP and the Liberal Party has been almost collapsing since day one. And from the political sphere, that's why they're going to do it. I think I think they're smart enough to understand the limitations of Justin Trudeau, who, as I have maintained this entire time, he's just a mascot. He is not the one who's he has no idea what's going on. He doesn't read the news. He's not involved in the decision making. He's just, remember, he said one time, "I'm the relationships manager," because that's how that party operates. So all of those things together cumulatively show that he's going to be calling election. And also, if we have these parliamentary hearings going on, what better, and they're going to be televised. So just so everybody knows, it's going to be 4 to 6 weeks long. They'll be on, I guess, CPAC every day. So finally, it's not going to be just fake news media rhetoric and smears. People will be able to hear us in our full context on the record, irrespective of what some gatekeepers might want during the hearings. And also the liberal, the judge who is a liberal, there is a massive divide in the Liberal Party. There are the Trudeau Liberals right now, because they've turned that party just into the Trudeau Party, and it's a small, clan of people that operate it. It's funny I use clan because they're all racist, but anyways, they are the most racist government that's ever held office in Canadian history. But
Wow.
Well, hold on. Let's go back 20 years. If anybody wore blackface for the past 50 years, that is automatic banishment from society. That was the most grave racist thing somebody can do. Yet Prime Minister Blackface does it, and all of a sudden it's not racist anymore. No. That's not how this works. So yes, he's the most racist person to hold office in Canadian history by a mile, by a significant mile.
All right.
But
He's clearly in trouble.
Yes. So, but what better way, to distract from these hearings if we have an election, and also that divide, the other side of the Trudeau cabal that's running it, are the Martin Chrétien liberals, and they hate Trudeau. You know how I know? Because I've spoken to them, because they've reached out to us during the convoy, and they've reached out to us since. And
wait a minute. So the Trudeau, the old Chrétien Martin gang who used to run the party, they reached out to you.
Younger people that were there, yeah.
Okay, so the people who were associated with that group, they reached out to you? I mean, you'd be the last guy I would expect to be contacted by anybody associated with the Liberal Party of Canada on any political issue like that, where they were complaining and talking about the future of the party. How did that happen?
Well, look at it this way. I'm, a downtown fiscal conservative guy. I'm center right leaning. And that is a voter base that the Liberal Party used to at least try to reach out to in the past before they went off the cliff communist, right? So if you want to rebuild the party in the image of what it was before, irrespective of all the corruption, but there's corruption everywhere, we know that. What better way than to reach out to those downtown conservatives who may not be Liberal members, but they would be sympathetic to some of their policies, not all of them. If you want to bring your party back to the center and to what it was, you're going to have to start making overtures to people who are in the conservative party who may be able to help them bring things back to the center.
Yeah, and there's strong economic headwinds now. People are really feeling the pinch. And in response to, I mean, we've got the debacle at Pearson Airport, at other airports, Canadian airports now. The CBC can try to deflect as much blame off of Justin Trudeau, suggesting that it's a PR problem.
Oh, is that what it is? Is that what they said?
It's not an operational catastrophe.
The CBC is their PR department. So.
Yeah, and now we've got this issue around fertilizer, which may be the most worrisome part of this, because when you're messing with our food, here's a post by Canada Proud. There is no logic behind Trudeau's war on fertilizer. This is an attack on farmers, plain and simple. TNC News reporting, .news, Alberta Agriculture Minister says Ottawa's fertilizer reduction, what does he say? Oh yeah, reduction target is pulled out of the air. I think they pulled it out of somewhere else. But either way, this is a disaster for farmers. This is going to threaten our food supply. I saw Jerry Ritz, former agriculture minister, on Fox News.
Yeah,
he was talking about it. So this is gaining international attention as other countries now are attacking their own farmers. We're seeing a global war, really not a global war, but it's really backed by the World Economic Forum. And we saw an excellent column by the Epoch Times examining that. So is this the last straw for Canadians, do you think? Where, okay, look, we've let you push this thing as far as we're prepared to take it, but now you're going after food. You're going to take food off our table. Forget that.
Yeah, I think it's not so much an attack on farmers, it's an attack on people, and they're trying to starve everybody into submission. That's it. It's really quite scary. When I was down in Colombia, I have a very good friend who is from the Netherlands who moved down there, and we spoke quite a detail in terms of what has been leading up to what's happening in the Netherlands. I mean, this is not a new thing. This started in 2019, if I remember correctly. It is a subversion of Western democracies by people who they would be excellent, not so much in a Bond movie, but maybe in an Austin Power movie. Because they're evil, but they're a little bit goofy and dumb, and they don't understand. We're all fed up with it, and that's what's amazing about it. When I mentioned before, people across the aisle have quietly made overtures and reached out. You see this all over alternative media. You won't see this in the fake news media, but when you log on to YouTube, Odyssey, you choose the platform, whatever it's going to be. You're going to see people like, Jordan Peterson, center right. You're going to see Russell Brand, who is on the left. Joe Rogan, who's all over the place, depending what it is. It doesn't matter your political framework. You're not going to go after our food. It's just not going to happen. And they're doing everything they can to cause what's called reciprocal violence or reciprocal extremism. Push people far enough, start to starve them, and then when they get violent, it's, look at the people getting violent. Well, what do you think?
It's true. Look at those radicals over there. So you push the most radical agenda imaginable on people, and then when they react in kind, you say, look at those radicals over there. They need to be stopped. They need to be crushed. It was interesting seeing some of the backlash in Prince Edward Island recently, where there was a picture posted on some tavern or whatever it was, and Trudeau was in it, and they were attacked by all sorts of people on the island saying, that this guy is a rat. I mean, of all places, this was an eye-opener for me, because Prince Edward Island is long been kind of a liberal bastion. Occasionally they vote a Tory, but largely they do tend to vote and support the liberals on that island. But in this case, no. It's like they're as upset as anybody in the country. Nobody would be surprised by seeing backlash and, very strong words leveled at the prime minister, say if it happened in Alberta. But here it was happening in the Maritimes, in Prince Edward Island. And so we're seeing more and more people across the country. And I think they know it. I think you look at Trudeau's polling negatives, even by liberal-friendly pollsters like Abacus, and they're off the chart. I mean, people hate this guy. They don't just dislike him. They don't just want to have him defeated politically. They despise this guy. I mean, and there's a visceral sense of hatred for Justin Trudeau from one end of this country to the other, Benjamin. And so why these guys would want to go to the polls now, I don't know. Maybe they think they don't have a choice. Talk a little bit about that. I mean, is it possible that they think that they can override this, that they can somehow portray, because you see some of the pundits, for instance, and I know how much you laugh at the Globe and Mail and others, but here they are saying, oh, here's Harper.
There we go.
Harper now coming out and endorsing Pierre Poilievre, and Harper only won one majority, and now he's going to be endorsing Pierre Poilievre, who's never won anything apart from his seat repeatedly. But I also sense this sense of, I want to say panic, but I think they're nervous. I think the liberal media is concerned that so many people can't stand Justin Trudeau that if there is an election, this could be a rout. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think I wouldn't call them liberal, the fake news media are upset because they know as soon as if Poilievre gets in, which I think is likely at this point, there goes the paychecks. And all those fake news medias, many of them, they will just collapse immediately. And people will move over to alternative media, the alternatives that have come arise from the internet. And I mean, that's just where we're going in society anyways. So they're going to do everything they can to target and smear. It's ironic that it seems to be there's more passion for Prime Minister Blackface to remain in office by the fake news media than actual members of the Liberal Party. And I think that's what the phenomenon you're seeing in Prince Edward Island, not exactly a bastion of right-wing conservatism, yet they're aware enough that the guy has been not only destroying the country, but he's destroyed the Liberal Party. There's nothing left of the Liberal Party. There's Trudeau, and there's Chrystia Freeland, which we all have our opinions about her level of intellect, which is limited. And there's a small group of them in PMO, and that's it. There's nothing left of it. And if I was a Liberal Party member from the eras back in the Maritimes, and I'm looking at what Justin Trudeau has done not only to the country and my party, and now he wants to starve us, it becomes, yeah, you know what? He was the idiot stepson of Pierre Trudeau. I agree. We got to get rid of him.
Yeah, I mean, he's done more to boost the popularity of, so-called populism, if you want to call it that, in Canada than anybody. I mean, a guy like that has been so radical and so extreme in his views, so anti-Canada. I mean, here's a guy now directing his wrath, trying to make the case that we need to destroy or undermine our food supply in order to save the planet. We have to starve you. It's for your own good. I mean, this is absolute lunacy. And this is the kind of stuff that has triggered uprisings in places like the Netherlands. We saw that. Mm-hmm. We saw it happen in Sri Lanka. Argentina now teetering on the brink. This is a global phenomenon. And I think Justin Trudeau could very well be next on that list. And it's hard to imagine that he doesn't see what's happening elsewhere, that he doesn't see what's happening in countries around the world in terms of reacting against this outrage, and doesn't think, well, if I go down this direction myself, I'm not going to be long for this job. You would think that he would get that, and yet he doesn't seem to be able to do that. Benjamin Dichter joining us on Saga 960. Now, you're involved in media projects. you're involved in a book. You want to talk about any of that stuff, or is that still kind of in the hopper? I know your book, obviously, you've been talking about that.
Yeah, we're 40,000 words into it. We're going to try to wrap it up over the next several weeks. We hope to have the final manuscript done. There's actually a team of people helping going through some of the proofreading right now, and for everything we've done so far. Secured a venue for a book launch, and we'll hopefully have that. We're trying to figure out a date. It'll be in the fall, end of the fall, early winter, not sure yet exactly. And my Substack, I'm involved. I'm starting to get involved with the National Telegraph, and working with those guys. And there's just a lot of things going on all at once. And somewhere in between there, like an hour and a half from now, I got to go get in my truck. Tonight we have Not on Record is a podcast I produce with Diana Davidson, who is well known to YouTube, and Joseph Newberger, who talks about a lot of the escalation. And this is something interesting about the Liberals, Trudeau, the more the chaos that he's caused. The escalation in wrongful convictions. Why do we have an escalation in wrongful convictions in Canada? It's because Jody Wilson-Raybould and Justin Trudeau together ended the 300-year tradition of preliminary hearings in sexual assault cases, meaning people who are accused of sexual assault, and sometimes those accusations are tenuous at best or just out-and-out lies and fake. The defendant had the opportunity to go to a preliminary hearing and to say, listen, this is completely false because A, B, and C. And I don't know if it's often, but occasionally there would be a preliminary hearing and the judge would look and say, okay, there's no evidence to support any of this. We're not proceeding with the trial, and it's dismissed. And that has been a 300-year-old tradition in British common law. That extremist, Jody Wilson-Raybould and Justin Trudeau, they're both extremists, so let's not celebrate what Raybould ended that tradition. So people who were falsely accused are at far greater risk of being convicted in Canada for crimes they didn't commit. So that is Not on Record, is the podcast that we produce. It's on YouTube every Sunday night at 8 o'clock, re-release. So that's just another area of chaos that the Trudeau extremism, the blackface extremism, has put upon Canada.
Yeah, of all people who would go in that direction, somebody who is widely seen to
the
have
groper in chief.
The groper in chief. It's widely, I want to say speculated, but I mean, a lot of people believe that he had something going with a student of his on the West Coast, that wasn't on the up and up. I mean, you can't do that with a student and think you're going to get away with it. And yet, if you have money and you have family connections and you have powerful people in your corner, then all of a sudden, lo and behold, you can make something go away like that. So I think that's absolutely outrageous, but it doesn't make him any less of a sexual predator, in my opinion. But I want to talk a little bit about Tamara Lich, because she's a friend of yours, and you certainly mentioned that in your column on Substack, the ongoing attacks on her and how it's, I think, backfiring. And I think you believe too, it's backfiring on the government. We saw her released. So obviously the government doesn't seem to control all judges, but I can't help but think that it was in the government's interest to set her free because of the backlash that they were getting, not only in Canada, but globally. I don't know how much contact you have with Tamara, but what is the situation with her as she continues to battle the forces of these draconian forces of the government, saying that she's a bad person and they keep throwing her in jail over suspected mischief case? I mean, this is an outrage.
Yeah, I haven't spoken to Tamara since the end of the Freedom Convoy, since she was arrested, because of her bail conditions. And I understand how the extremists on the other side work, and they look for any sort of loophole to impose authoritarianism on people and individuals. And I didn't want to put her at risk. And I wish other people did the same thing. I was quite angry with the stupidity that I saw, to be entirely honest. This is the longest that I've gone without speaking to Tamara, because usually we would talk, I don't know, every couple of weeks, every few weeks, sometimes once a month, depending how busy we are. But I think the government saw that they were turning her into a martyr. And I don't know why they went down this route. I mean, I have some, personal theories as to why, but unsubstantiated. So, but they realized that it was massive damage. But in terms of the attacks on Tamara and myself and the Freedom Convoy, the thing that's been most upsetting, and I talk about this in the book, is I like to say all the knives that I have in my back, they're from people on the right. They're not from people on the left. People on if the left talked to us, great. That was the whole point. We were in Ottawa, and as we said many times, Jerry Butts, Trudeau's brain, come down for coffee. Let's talk. And he didn't have the spine to even do that. He's too afraid to come for coffee. Okay, fine. And so the government did nothing. But on our side, all the subverters, all the deceivers, all the people who are knifing us in the back, all the organizations starting to pump money into proxy organizations to sabotage. They didn't see it as sabotage. They just want to be in control, right? You know how the political structure works. It's always a certain group of people who think, yeah, we believe in these things, but I have to be in control. So that's where all the attacks had come from. And they supplanted all of these completely fake narratives throughout social media to stab us all in the back. And, the book I'm writing, this book with John Goddard, who's a published author, former reporter. And he posted, he sent me this message, and I posted on Twitter. It's just the most amazing comment, and it's so accurate. And it is this, quote, "I don't understand why people who don't believe anything on mainstream media will swallow anything from the internet," end quote. Because that's the tool that's being used by, subverters on our side of the political spectrum to tear down people who are successful in going after the opposition. And that's why the opposition always wins. That's why the liberals are always in control, because people on our side start throwing knives at each other. It's infuriating. Lauren Southern actually just released a documentary about this. That's 2 hours long. It's called The Whole Truth, I think is what it's called. It's absolutely brilliant. It explains, and this happens, a little bit on the left, but not to the degree it happens on the right. It's absolutely amazing where she explains some of the things she was dealing with between the years of 2014 to 16, 17, if I'm not mistaken. And that's what Tamara and I had just gone through with the Freedom Convoy, and are still going through, by the way. It has not stopped.
Speaking of a book coming out, Andrew Lawton, of course, has his book out. And sadly, we're seeing some pushback by Chapters. And here's a guy saying that he is breaking up with Chapters over this book. Why I am breaking up with Chapters. His name is Philip Miller. Mm-hmm. Let's listen a little bit to that clip.
I'm going to continue my series of breakup videos, and today's heartbreak is that I have to break up with Chapters in Indigo. I've had a very long relationship with that corporation, probably spent $10,000 to $20,000 on books. I love going into the store and browsing. I love finding books that I didn't know existed because I'd go from department to department. It was a special thing to me. But unfortunately, I'm breaking up with them because they have succumbed to the political correct woke mob and are not putting books on their shelves that are important to balance the scales of information. Specifically, there's a book in Canada that's on the best-selling list called The Freedom Convoy, right? And it's speaking to that event in which many working class people went to Ottawa to protest vaccine mandates. Now, I'm not on either side of that debate, but I thought that protest was important to Canada. It allowed working class people to voice a concern. We were able to see the government's response, which wasn't that good, I think. And it's very important for Canadians to know that probably for the first time ever, the government initiated the Emergency Measures Act, which allowed them to freeze the bank accounts of citizens protesting. That is something we need to know about. We need to know why the banks were compliant with the government. This is a huge thing that has resulted in billions of dollars leaving Canada to go internationally, because everywhere outside of Canada, they can't believe that happened. The Freedom Convoy had some issues with some fringe elements. I think very much like the Black Lives.
I'm going to stop it there, but you get the hint. I mean, here's a guy. Are you concerned that your book, once it comes out, will also be kind of banned, kept off the shelves of people who should absolutely be making it available to the public?
Well, a couple of interesting things. I've spoken to Philip. I spoke to him during the Freedom Convoy, and I've spoken to him since. He's got a message. I got to respond to him. Philip is not what you would call a conservative. I would say he's definitely more of a centrist. He's your typical Canadian who would vote for Liberals or Conservatives. He's just depending on the issues. I don't think he fits so much into a box, right? So it's very interesting to see that somebody like that who is open to all sides, that proves my point about people who could be pro-liberal are abandoning them because Justin Trudeau has destroyed the party completely. In terms of the book, no, I'm not terribly worried because I have a strategy for it. It'll be fine. I mean, listen, I know the family that owns Chapters. I mean, we all know who the family are. They're hardcore liberals. That's it. They're there to protect the Liberal Party for business interests, and so they're corrupt. Okay, well, not my problem. And but in terms of our book getting out there, no, I'm not terribly worried because I'm not necessarily looking at the old school distribution channels. There's a lot of problems with the publishers right now. One of the things that happened during COVID is book sales skyrocketed, which means all the publishers are slammed. There's now a 3-year waiting list to get books into production because of the volume of books they have to do because of how much they've sold. So that's been an issue for many others. I know Andrew's publisher is very close with the conservative political establishment. It's part of that whole crew. And they were able to squeeze in a limited number of books. But even they couldn't do a full run of books like they normally would, just because of what COVID has done to the publishing industry, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it certainly does. All right. Well, I got to wrap things up, but thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate that, Benjamin. What's next on your dance card now? I mean, you've got Substack, so you're certainly letting people know that you're writing about it, and then of course,
I don't have enough. I'm gonna start live streaming as well.
Yeah, come on, man, get busy here. But I guess the testimony is the big thing, though. When is that going to happen?
That's going to start sometime in September, and leading up to that, I think it's important. I've been very quiet. Tamara has been obviously quiet for obvious reasons. And I think it's time to set the record straight and explain some of the things that were going on during the convoy, which is what the book is going to do. And part of the reason I was building out the little studio space was so I can start doing some live streaming and answering some questions from people, and then seeing the trolley comments, which I always enjoy. And just kind of lay out some of the things, the factual things that people, despite my explaining ad nauseum on numerous platforms, I still get, the same thing. So it's time to start laying out the pieces and put them all together for everybody.
Benjamin Dichter, thank you so much for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
All right, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
See ya. Got to take a break. Back with more News Talk Saga 960 and the Mark Petrona Show after this.